So let me start by saying my name is Conor Lacefield, and as many of you may know, I am the one responsible for writing the music for the track Justified as featured on the original Dead Rising video game by Capcom. And I would like to say thank you so much to all the people who have loved this song for so long and continue to do so even with the remake. And the purpose of this video is to give all you fans and superfans the who, why, what, where, and when of how this song came to be and how all this came to pass. So let's get started. My family and I had been living in Southern California for about a year, and I had been writing music the whole time. We had rented a house on the corner of Burbank and Shoup in Woodland Hills, California, and I was using a spare bedroom as a makeshift studio, and this is where the song came to life. The original demo was called Dance of the Dead, so it was destined apparently to end up where it did. Check it out, here's a little clip. I was working as an A&R intern, which means working for free, at a little boutique label that shall remain nameless. Let's just say boutique is code for predatory, as most of the music industry is. And like I said, I had been writing a lot of music for quite some time, and wanted to pull a band together and do some shows. Drea was the second one to respond to the ad. We set up a time, got together, and we hit it off immediately. So we picked a handful of my songs that she had connected with, and she began to write. We continued to look for band members and lucked out when my longtime friend Ron Quinn decided to move to Southern California and join the band as our drummer. Rehearse, 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 that is all we did. The songs were coming together, the band was getting tight, and we were becoming a solid unit. In comes the producer. Drea met an individual who shall remain nameless, who had had some minor success with an independent solo release. He was a talented musician, but he was no producer, and that made itself apparent pretty quickly. It's a story as old as the entertainment industry. Sex sells, and nobody wants to see ugly dudes on the front of an album cover. So this band that we had worked so hard to put together was forced to become a solo project. And as a founding member, that did not please me at all, to say the least. But as many of us do, I had so much time and energy invested in this project that I bent to the will and did what I knew I shouldn't be doing. And now that this was a solo project, it was on Drea to find funding to record the record, and to her credit, she did. The first person we recruited was a very talented young engineer named Chris Spilfogel, who I'd known about a year from working at that shitty little boutique label. Chris would go on to do great things in film and music and still does to this day, such as The Conjuring, Insidious, 21 Pilots, Beyonce, Annabelle, Aquaman, Dark Skies, and the list goes on and on. We booked Studio B at Paramount Studios in downtown LA and began tracking what would become the record Read What's Written. And ironically, the track that you all still love to this day was a B-side. We still hadn't enlisted a bass player to this point, so I ended up tracking all the bass guitars on the record as well. Tracking continued for about a month or a month and a half with lots and lots and lots of drama, including my good friend Ronnie being fired from the recording because of some bullshit the producer came up with because he wanted to work with a specific session drummer. And we all know that karma is a bitch, and they did get theirs. They had to come back to Ron on bended knee and ask him to retrack the drums on what they considered to be the single because the session drummer was lifeless. Once the drama cleared and tracking was finished, we moved to Can-Am Studios in Tarzana, California to do the mix. Can-Am Studios, formerly known as Death Row Records, the home of Dr. Dre, Eminem, D10, and a house arrest home of Suge Knight. The Studio A lounge had a bedroom, living room, full bathroom, and full kitchen. The bedroom walls were lined with Kevlar. I wonder why. There was plenty of drama during mixing as well, like full bottles of Gatorade getting dumped into the console. Drea. But mixing was finally completed, and we were ready to send it off to mastering. The band roster was finally complete when we added Frank Vella on bass, and we began to prepare for a CD release and shows to ensue after. The CD release went well, and we started to play shows. My relationship with Drea still had fractures from the ultimatum about the solo project, and as it continued it became more and more fractured until finally, the last straw. Drea was going to shoot a music video for the proposed single for the record, and I was asked not to be in it. Now the fact that I had written the music, recorded the record, and was a founding member of the band, you can imagine this was incredibly insulting. And at this point, things were not going in the direction either of us wanted. So one afternoon I got a phone call and was invited to lunch by Drea. I was informed that she was leaving the band, it wasn't a band, and she was moving across the country to restart her life in another place. And I don't want anyone thinking that Drea is bad, or that I'm just whining boo-hoo me. This was life, this is what happened, and this is just context for what's to come. Now, months later, I received a phone call from our old manager. He had been contacted by one of his other clients who was representing Capcom, and they said they were interested in one of the songs from the record for use in a video game. Now, at this point, I would have cut off my nose to spite my face. I was so pissed and wanted nothing to do with it. But I eventually agreed. The deal was for peanuts, but who were we to turn it down? And ironically, years later, the person who facilitated the deal said that he could have got us more money. A little fucking late now, don't you think? Capcom wanted the song to be more epic, so a few things had to be added. The drums were recut by Chris Frazier. He had played with Steve Vai, Whitesnake, Edgar Winter, Eddie Money, Foreigner, to name a few. A string arrangement and auxiliary guitars would be added as well. Now I must say the string session was epic. To hear a song that I had written, recorded with a 12-piece string orchestra, was absolutely amazing. These guys were A-list. They did 2 takes and they were done. The aux guitars went quick and smooth, and then on the spot he informs me that he wants a guitar solo. And then he felt it necessary to inform me that Steve Vai had just finished a record here, so no pressure. I ended up doing several improvised takes and he chose his favorite 2 chunks, and that's what's on the record. Funny thing is, I learned this solo for the first time while I was tracking this new instrumental version. I had absolutely no idea how to play this solo. Remember, we weren't a band anymore or a solo artist. That was all over, so this song was never played in this form live ever. So now the new version of the song is in the can, sent to Capcom, and the waiting game begins. So Capcom was kind enough to send us a copy of the game, but I didn't own an Xbox, so I couldn't even play it. But when my 3 boys were old enough, they did. It was exciting to see the game become successful and know we had a small part in it. And knowing what I know now about the industry, independent artists these days don't have a snowball's chance in hell of having an opportunity such as this. So we were very lucky. Eventually we were approached about the soundtrack and we did agree to be a part of it. Now I don't know how well the soundtrack ever did because I could never find any numbers, but we were on it. So the years rolled on and it was just something I had done in the past. I kind of forgot about it. The only time it was ever brought up was when my kids were bragging to their friends about it, or they would ask me to blast it in the car when we were on road trips. But that was the end of it. Trey and I made contact again in 2014 and we buried the hatchet. But we've since lost contact over the years again. I went about my life making other records and working in film and television. I signed a publishing deal in late 2018, and I've been creating music and sound design for film and television since. One day my son Connor stumbled across a fan video that had been made about 8 years prior on YouTube. To his amazement, there was still a steady stream of comments and activity and nearly 1 million views. Now, in today's numbers I realize 1 million views isn't shit, but to see that kind of activity after all these years on a song I had forgotten about was absolutely stunning. And the comments that I saw were humbling to say the least. I had no idea that anyone still gave a rat's ass if that song was still there. And most people that write music that I know do it because they love it and they want to express what they're trying to say. But no one ever expects that a song could or would take on a life of its own, and when it does happen, it's pretty stunning. There were always things I was not happy with this initial recording. So I thought, after seeing all the love that it was still getting, fuck it, I'm going to re-record it and make it the way I wanted it. I will state for the record that I did reach out to Drea, and I have not received a response. I'm not sure if the message didn't get through, but to this day, there has been no response. So this begs the question, what do I do from here? So I'm going to be coming to you fine people to help me figure out what I should do. There are a few options, and I'd like to explore them all, and I'd like to know what you all think of each option. Your opinions will weigh heavily on how this thing goes down. So let me know how you feel and what you think, and just know we're in this together at this point. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead and subscribe and hit the little bell so you can stay informed about what's happening. Let's see where this ride takes us. Thanks.